In today's video, we're talking protein timing. Welcome to the video, guys. My name is Tyler, also known as the Fit Chemist, and I help people take control of their lives by taking control of their fitness and nutrition habits so that ultimately we can lead healthier and happier lives. So if you're new here, welcome. Please consider subscribing. Turn those notification bells on so you don't miss when I post new videos. And if you are returning, welcome back. I am so glad that you are here. In my last video, I showed you how to find your exact protein requirements based on your lean body mass, your age, and whether or not you are in a calorie deficit. And then in the video before that was geared for physique competitors, I talked a little bit about protein timing, but not too much. So in today's video, I want to expand on that topic, make it a little bit more general, and look at if the anabolic window is actually a real thing. So do you need to get protein in right after your workout, or can you space it out throughout the day, and what should that spacing look like, etc., etc. But if you haven't seen those videos, I'll put the thumbnails somewhere over here, and then I'll link them up here as well. I highly recommend checking them out because they're packed with tons of good information. But like I said, today's video is going to be talking specifically about protein timing. In particular, I want to talk about two topics today. One of them I already mentioned, the anabolic window, so we'll see if that's actually real and what the science says about the anabolic window. And the second thing I want to talk about is muscle protein synthesis and how we can maximally stimulate that throughout the day in order to maximize our gains. Let's start with the anabolic window. So what is it? Well, bro science will tell you that immediately post-workout you need to consume both carbohydrates and protein, say maybe 30 to 60 minutes right after your workout, because you're in a depleted state, you've burned through glycogen stores, and you've also created tears in your lean tissue while doing the lifting or resistance training. So the idea here is that your body is in the super prime state to sort of build back that muscle and stimulate MPS, and you need to do so by giving it the nutrients immediately after your workout. But is there any truth to this? Early research seemed to suggest that there was some validity to this hypothesis, so we'll highlight a study done by Tipton in 1999 in which they were looking at the difference between essential amino acids, mixed amino acids, and then a placebo group consuming these amino acids or no amino acids at all if you're in the placebo group immediately after post-workout. And what they found was that after the workout, the groups that consumed both essential amino acids and mixed amino acids had higher protein balance, suggesting to them that consuming protein post-workout is actually going to stimulate MPS to a greater degree than if you didn't consume those amino acids. Fast forward a couple years to 2006, and a study published by Rieu and co-workers supported these initial findings. However, in this particular paper, they did find that a leucine threshold was required to stimulate MPS. Enter Lane Norton's research. If you don't know who Lane is, I highly recommend looking him up. I think he goes by BioLane on both Instagram and YouTube. He's a great resource for science-based fitness information, but what I like most about him is that he's not afraid to call people out when they're sharing false data or if they're pushing some phony products. So not only is he a great resource, but it's quite entertaining to watch him get into these debates with people, and he doesn't back down because he knows his stuff very well. The first study that Lane published back in 2012 was looking at the effects of even protein distribution compared to uneven protein distribution throughout the day, and what he found was that the even protein distribution group had a higher rate of MPS throughout the day, as well as they gained more muscle mass. The second study that he also published in 2012 found that leucine is in fact the trigger for these higher rates of muscle protein synthesis, which confirms what we saw in the 2006 study done by Rieu and co-workers. So all the studies that we've seen so far seem to suggest that yes, the anabolic window is real. However, we do need to consume an adequate amount of leucine to actually trigger that muscle protein synthesis, but there is some evidence that actually suggests otherwise. We'll get to what those studies say in just one second, but my question of the day for you is, what is your favorite or go-to post-workout meal? For me, it's a protein shake with whole milk and then either a banana or apple with some peanut butter. I work out in the morning, it's easy to come home and have that pretty much every single day, but I'm curious to know what yours is, so let me know in the comments down below. And with that, let's get back into it. The first study that debunks the anabolic window was published by Erskine and co-workers in 2012. And what they actually found was that there was no difference in muscle hypertrophy between two groups immediately post-workout. They consumed either 20 grams of whey or they had no protein at all. And again, both of those groups saw the same amount of muscle hypertrophy. One thing I will mention in this study, however, is that they didn't control for total daily protein, or at least I couldn't find it in the methods section of their paper. So it is possible that the control group, despite not having whey protein right after their workout, was eating more total daily protein, and that's why they saw the same amount of muscle mass. It's kind of hard to say from the study. However, the results that they present do seem to suggest the anabolic window is not necessarily a real thing. Furthermore, Brad Schoenfeld, who is a leading researcher in this field, and some of his colleagues published a meta-analysis in 2013 looking at 67 different studies, and ultimately what they found is that there was no differences in muscle hypertrophy regardless of protein timing. Schoenfeld then went on to confirm this with his own study in 2017, in which they stated, "These findings refute the contention of a narrow post-exercise anabolic window to maximize the muscular response, and instead lend support to the theory that the interval for protein intake may be as wide as several hours or perhaps more after a training bout, depending on when the pre-workout meal was consumed." This study seems to suggest that so long as you had an adequate protein intake, maybe 1 to 2 hours before your workout, that you still have maybe 1 to 2 hours after your workout to get in your next protein dose, and that you don't necessarily need it immediately after your workout. So now that we've seen some more recent research that debunks the anabolic window, does this mean that protein timing is not that important? Nope. Protein timing is actually quite important. We just don't need to have it immediately post-workout. In order to maximize our gains, we need to maximize our MPS, and we can do so by consuming 20 to 40 grams of protein in several doses throughout the day. I'm taking these numbers from 2 particular studies. The first one was published by Moore and colleagues in 2009, and they found that 20 grams of egg protein was enough to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, whereas 5 and 10 grams of protein was not enough to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. And what they noted was that if you go up to 40 grams of egg protein, that sort of plateaued muscle protein synthesis, and it doesn't continually increase with the increasing amount of protein. This was further confirmed by the second study I'm going to talk about, which was done by Witard in 2014. They did a very similar study, except this time using whey protein. So they found that again, 20 grams of whey protein was enough to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, whereas 5 and 10 grams of whey protein was not. And when they bumped it up to 40 grams of protein, that sort of plateaued muscle protein synthesis again, and they didn't see anything increasing beyond what they saw at 20 grams. So if I need to consume 20 to 40 grams of protein to maximize my MPS, how frequently do I need to do this? I'm glad you asked. There was a study published by Areta and coworkers in 2013 that answered this exact question. In this study, they wanted to look at muscle protein synthesis over a 12-hour span, and what they did was they split participants up into 3 different groups. So one group had 4 doses of 20 grams of protein. Another group had 2 doses of 40 grams of protein, so a little bit larger doses, but not as frequently. And then they had a high frequency group that actually had 8 doses of 10 grams of protein, so lower amounts of protein, but much more frequently. What they found was that the group that consumed 4 20-gram doses of protein actually had the highest amounts of muscle protein synthesis. These results seem to suggest that there is an advantage to having more frequent protein dosing throughout the day. However, they do suggest as well that you don't want to have such a small amount of protein that you're not actually triggering muscle protein synthesis. At this point, we've answered both of the questions that I wanted to answer. So the first one being, is the anabolic window a real thing? No, we saw that it's not real. However, protein timing is still very important. The second question that we answered is how to maximally stimulate MPS and therefore maximize our gains, and we can do so by consuming 20 to 40 grams of protein every couple of hours throughout the day. If you miss out on a meal with some protein, are you going to be missing out on some gains? Yes, because you're not maximally stimulating MPS. However, is it going to be detrimental to your physique? Probably not, as long as you're consuming enough protein each and every day. Even though protein timing is important, what we saw from that meta-analysis was that it's more important to get a higher total daily protein intake than anything else. If we're going to talk about this in a practical sense, let's just make up a number. Let's say we need to consume 200 grams of protein every single day to hit our goal. The way that we could maximally stimulate MPS would be to divide that into 5 doses of 40 grams of protein, and most people are probably up somewhere around 16 hours, so that would be a 40-gram dose every 3 hours or so. Ideally, you'd like to have one of those doses maybe an hour or 2 before training, and then another dose another hour or 2 after training. But again, you don't necessarily need to have a protein shake immediately after your workout, unless of course that's what's most convenient for you. At the end of the day, you need to do something that you can be consistent with and that will allow you to hit your total daily protein goals. I do realize that there's some careers and some lifestyles out there that aren't going to allow someone to eat every 3 hours, but that being the case, you can still focus on getting enough protein in each and every day and just eat as frequently as you can to maximize that MPS. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments down below, and again, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe, turn those notification bells on, because I post new videos every single Friday and you do not want to miss when they go live. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.